Well, guys, two of the most storied programs in college football meet on Saturday. Oh, my God. This is not good. Good Lord, you guys. Okay, here we go. 3, 2. Well, two of the most storied programs in college football meet on Saturday, talking about number 3, Ohio State, and number 14, Oklahoma. Now, the Buckeyes have faced two teams at home this season. Perfect record so far. Are they ready for prime time on the road?
That's what we're going to find out. I mean, Bowling Green and Tulsa are good mid-level programs, but they're not Oklahoma. And Ohio State, as everyone knows, has 16 new starters. They've never been on the road. For this kind of setting, there's still a mystery. And so we're going to really find out how good they are.
I think defensively they'll be more ready. Typically, defense travels a lot better than offense. They're young there, but they have a lot of talented players that have been making plays. Offensively, the one thing you worry about with a young offensive line, it's going to be a lot of noise. Will they be able to get the snap off without a lot of procedural penalties? So you worry about those guys and maybe the communication between some of the skill players early in the game.
And the Buckeyes have been successful, though, on the road, looking for their 19th victory if they get that. Well, the Buckeyes offense exploded onto the scene in that first game with over 700 yards of total offense. And really, the spark, though, in the last game came in the second half. With saying that, how important is it for them to get into the end zone early in this game?
I think it's crucial because this is not going to be a low-scoring game, I don't think. I'd be very surprised if it's not a fairly high-scoring game because both offenses are just so good. And Ohio State against Tulsa, which was not very good defensively, or at least didn't have a good reputation defensively, they really had trouble. It was the defense that sparked the offense with the 2 pick sixes. And if Ohio State has the kind of offensive performance in the first half that they did against Tulsa in the first half, they're going to be in trouble.
Well, I think what I like, though, is the fact that they did struggle. It's important for a team to struggle when they're young, to go into halftime, figure out what adjustments need to be made, correct those adjustments. And then you saw in the second half the Buckeye offense really got rolling, was able to move forward. And Tulsa, you know, they may not be one of the most talented teams, but they had a pretty good front seven and were able to challenge Ohio State. And I think sometimes the challenge is sometimes all those players, that's all they really need.
Okay, so JT Barrett, we've seen him. He's been successful early on with almost 500 yards passing, adding 5 passing TDs. He has 3 rushing. What do you expect him to do against this Sooners team?
Well, he's got to be JT Barrett. He's got to be calm and poised, be a leader. He's got to distribute the ball. It doesn't have to be Braxton Miller like Braxton Miller used to be, where he would make these spectacular plays. He doesn't have to do that. He just has to get the ball into his playmakers' hands, Mike Weber, Curtis Samuel, the receivers, and let them do a lot of the work.
JT Barrett has always been the great distributor. He's not the guy that always makes the play, but he's a guy that gets the ball to the playmakers, and it's very important that he continues to do that. And one other piece, though, historically with Urban Meyer, when the game is on the line, he always leans on his quarterback. He did it with Tim Tebow. He's done it with Braxton, and I think he's going to continue to do that with JT. So you look for critical, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 5. Look for him to run the ball with his star quarterback.
We saw in that first game especially so many playmakers on offense. Who do you expect to be really the secret weapon in this game?
Well, I think Mike Weber's got to be a key. He's not a secret, obviously, but I think he's got to be key because they do have to be able to run the ball, and if they get ahead in the fourth quarter, they've got to be able to use him to run out the clock. And you don't want to give Baker Mayfield a chance to win the game at the end, and so they have to have a semblance of a running game.
You know, I think the running game will be important, whether it's Mike Weber, Curtis Samuel, but then also who's going to be the guy that steps up as a receiver? Will it be Noah Brown? We've heard a lot about him. Terry McLaurin, you've heard a lot about him. Johnny Dixon. They have a lot of opportunities with all those weapons, but they're going to have to start narrowing this down to find a go-to guy late in the game.
Okay, so switching over a little, the Buckeyes defense has been the story early on in the season. In 2 games, allowing no touchdowns, but the Sooner offense is more of the real deal with Baker Mayfield, obviously. What do you expect them to do against a team like this?
Well, I don't think they're going to go another game without giving up a touchdown. I think they have to temper their expectations. I think they have to make Oklahoma earn it. They can't just have defensive breakdowns. When Mayfield scrambles, that's sometimes when he's most dangerous. They have to stay very disciplined, stay with those receivers, make them go 10, 12 plays to score touchdowns.
They're going to go a little bit up-tempo. The one thing that's encouraging for Ohio State defensively is they play a lot of guys. They play a lot of players up front. They've been working in some new linebackers. It'll be interesting to see, if Booker's back, how much he plays. Jerome Baker filled in, Joe Berger, the will linebacker spot. Both of those guys did a good job. And I'm very curious to see in the secondary. They've been ball hawking back there, but Baker Mayfield is good. how aggressive will they be? Because sometimes when you're a little aggressive, you can get burnt.
Really quickly, you guys, Urban Meyer getting a little bit of advice on the personnel side of things from his man Tom Herman. How far can he take that? How much advice do you think he got?
I think probably a decent amount. I think Tom Herman, I mean, they're very close. And Tom Herman, he's friends with Urban. Why wouldn't he, give it up and help him out as much as he can? So I think a lot.
I think he's helping him out, but it is probably in Houston's best interest for Oklahoma to continue to win.
Yeah.
And I think his friendship probably trumps that. They said they didn't talk schematics. Probably a lot of what they sat there and discussed was, these specific players. How did you try to take advantage of them? How did you exploit them? Where did you think their strengths and weaknesses were on a player-by-player basis? And I would guess the conversation probably didn't last more than a half hour.
Well, thank you so much, guys. We appreciate all your insight.
We bring in Tim May, the Columbus Dispatch, and former Ohio State linebacker Bobby Carpenter. You can listen to him daily on 97.1 The Fan from noon to 3. Bobby, early on, is it too early to say this is the best defense in the Urban Meyer era? But boy, they look pretty good.
Well, you have to look at the opponents they've played. Bowling Green, Tulsa, while they may be talented, and I think both of them have a legitimate shot to challenge for their conference, I don't know if they're necessarily in the realm that you're going to see next week against Oklahoma. They're not in the class of elite Big Ten or elite teams across the country, but I do think this may be the most talented secondary that they've had here in quite a few years.
Tim, with that said, we were curious how they would reload in the secondary. 2 games in and 7 picks so far this season.
No, Dom, they lead the nation in turnovers gained with 9, including the 2 fumbles they've recovered. But, you've got a guy like Marshawn Lattimore, you just watch him. He is an athlete. He's also a skilled football player. Malik Hooker only played football 2 years in high school. He's running around like he invented playing the safety position. And yesterday's pick, where he took back for a touchdown, that was a combination of great instincts and also basically pregame planning, and also a little change on the sidelines before that because Tulsa had run that play earlier, and they just had Malik come across, and he was able to adjust on the fly and make one of those great plays. That's what you're dealing with right now.
Bobby, some are saying Malik Hooker. Here's a guy that almost quit 7 times, according to Urban, his freshman year. But some that have watched this kid with his speed, explosiveness, saying this kid's an NFL player playing college football. Do you see any of that?
Well, Coach Meyer, he can be prone to hyperbole at times and likes to love to, ham it up when it comes to stories like that. But I do think Malik Hooker is incredibly talented. You see the athleticism he has. And that's why I never like to judge a guy too early in his career, especially a kid with limited reps in high school. He's now come to Ohio State, and you see his versatility. Took him a little bit of time to master the craft of the safety position, and he's still working on it, but now he's capable of making those big plays.
Tim, I think it's fair to say Oklahoma is going to try to pound the football against Ohio State. Any concerns with the Ohio State front as far as defending the run? We saw Tulsa get a little bit of success.
You saw Tulsa get a little bit of success early yesterday, but then Ohio State kind of tightened it up, let's put it that way. And Tulsa had 20 yards of offense in the 3rd quarter. That said it all. It's like when the big storm blew in, the Golden Hurricane blew out. It was really, really odd the way that worked. But yeah, Oklahoma has a pretty nice running attack, but they've also got Baker Mayfield at quarterback, and he's as dangerous on the run as he is just standing in the pocket. It's kind of a good combo that they've got going on offense. But I'm not sure they can line up and just pound Ohio State and get away with it.
All right, guys, it was a tale of 2 halves for the Buckeye offense. Ohio State had trouble moving the ball in the first half, had to settle for 2 field goals. Then in the second half, different story. Buckeyes picking it up with 4 touchdowns scored. End of the day, it is a team sport.
Sometimes we start off sluggish and the defense picks us up with the 2 picks that they have, and then there's going to be a time in the season where the defense may be sluggish. So, and we got to pick things up and get the momentum. So, that's how a team works, especially good teams, and I think we're a good team that was able to do that today.
Bobby, in your mind, what was the difference? And it's very easy just to say, well, the offensive line didn't get a big enough push.
Well, they're always the people that you look to. They can be the scapegoat, if you will. I think a large portion of it, though, is Tulsa was throwing some different looks at them, and they had that nice, long, extended halftime, which I'm not sure all of the players really enjoyed, but I know the coaches enjoyed. Get in there, get some corrections, give some motivation and some encouragement to the guys up front, and you saw those holes open up in the second half.
Tim, 70 minutes, you can watch a lot of video. That's the way I look at it.
The other thing is, Tim, and Urban talked about it after the game, getting Curtis Samuel involved, and that was a mission in the second half. I think that was a turning point. I think, obviously, the 2 interceptions towards the end of the first half, that kind of changed the momentum of the game.
Yeah, just
but
a little
then
bit.
Curtis Samuel, with what way he was using the second, and Urban took credit for that. Said, "Hey, that's my baby."
Yeah, I mean, first half, I mean, Tulsa, I thought, had a pretty talented front seven. I don't know if Bobby agrees with me or not. I mean, their number 98 was a heck of a football player, and he sacked J.T. Barrett hard this one time, but went right around Isaiah Prince. But they got some things straightened out, and they kind of ran straight at him a little bit more in the second half, and then got to the edge a little bit better. They didn't really attack the middle of the field with the passing game very much, like they had done the previous week against Bowling Green. I'm interested to see now how they're going to go against Oklahoma.
But it seems to me this club feeds off Curtis Samuel. I mean, they take his energy.
Oh, they absolutely do, because he's the big play threat. And I think early in the game, sometimes when you score 77 points the week before, you can get caught up in trying to score 77 points in the first play, in the second play of the game.
Right.
Settle down, let the plays come to you, and utilize a guy like Curtis Samuel because he is so talented.
Plus, Tulsa had paid attention to what Curtis Samuel had done that first game. They had a few wrinkles going there themselves.
Mike Weber had just under 100 yards rushing. Now, Coach Meyer reminded him in that opening game against Bowling Green, worked him pretty hard, saying that you left at least 150 yards on the field, should have had some touchdowns. He's comparing him to Zeke, obviously. But, what's he missing right now, Bobby? I mean, Weber himself was frustrated he didn't get in the end zone week one, but he did yesterday, found the end zone.
He did. I'm sure he would have liked to have had that 100-yard game as well. That's something that's always really nice to kind of get the feather in your cap when you can start racking those up. And I don't think there's anything missing with Mike Weber's game per se. He's a very talented guy. You have to remember, this is his second collegiate football game. And,
right.
and with all of these players, I think everyone needs to pump the brakes a little bit. As good as they can look at times, they're also going to regress and have some bad plays and maybe a bad series here and there.
I think he looks like a running back. I mean, by that, I mean he has those wiggles. He looks for the little creases, the cracks in the defense. I think he looks like a running back. He's just a matter of time till he pops a few.
All right, guys, now comes the big one, as the 3rd and 4th ranked Buckeyes will travel to 14th ranked Oklahoma. This is a game, let's face it, everyone's been pointing to. Tim, you like to say matchups make fights. How does this game match up?
Well, I told you 3 or 4 weeks ago I thought Oklahoma was slightly overrated because they lost quite a few big-time players off both sides of the ball. And, of course, Ohio State lost 16 starters from its side of the ball. But I'm looking at Oklahoma's starting offense, for example. One of their starting wide receivers is a transfer from Penn State named Geno Lewis. He's one of their top guys, if you understand what I'm saying.
Right.
And Penn State didn't really light him up the last several years. Ohio State knows this guy. Just right on down the line, I thought Clemson and then Houston gave a little blueprint on how you play against Baker Mayfield. I think this favors Ohio State in a lot of respects.
Well, I have said all along that I believe the two most overrated programs in America, Oklahoma and Oregon, Bobby. But as you look at this game, Urban Meyer has a very, very young football team. It's one thing to play at home. It's another thing to go out there to Soonerville. How big of a concern is that? And as a coach, what do you do to get a young team ready for a very hostile place?
Well, not only is this the first time going to a hostile environment, it's the first time for a lot of these guys going on the road and being a starting player at Ohio State. There's going to be huge challenges with that. It's going to be a loud, raucous environment for a very young offensive line. There'll be some challenges there. J.T. Barrett, Pat Elflein should help calm the storm a little bit. But I think one thing that you can always travel is your defensive line and pressure. And after this Buckeye defensive line with Larry Johnson watches that Houston film, they're going to be able to see some opportunities there, and they should be foaming at the mouth to get after Baker Mayfield.
Real quick, Tim, he just mentioned Houston. Tom Herman, offensive coordinator for Urban Meyer, had the big win over Oklahoma. How much are those guys talking, or does that help Urban and Ohio State?
Well, neither one of them told me how much they're talking here today. I imagine there is some communication, let's put it that way.
Does it help Ohio State?
Yeah, but what really helps Ohio State is just watching the video of Houston, how they got after them. I mean, there are tells for every football team. It's like you're talking about a young team going on the road. The funny thing is, Urban Meyer's 51-4. He's never lost a real road game. He's lost a couple of games, postseason games, and then 2 games at home. So he and his staff have a pretty good way of getting these guys ready to play on the road.
You like Ohio State in this?
I like Ohio State after seeing Houston the first couple of weeks. I think they'll be able to pull it out.
Yeah, I liked Ohio State 3 or 4 weeks ago. I'm going to stick with that.